Now I'm going to show you various settings relating to SIM cards, and particularly the SIMs setting. I'm Ed Green, and in this demonstration I'm going to show you settings related to your SIM card in the network and internet settings category in Android 12. I'm doing this on my Sony Xperia 1 Mark III. I have installed two SIMs for the purposes of this. I have a dual SIM phone. There are important settings relating to your SIM card, even if you only have one SIM. I think it makes the settings window look more interesting though, and it'll show you the potential if you do have a two SIM or a dual SIM phone. I've previously demonstrated installing an eSIM on our YouTube channel. Go take a look at that if you're interested. This phone is not an eSIM enabled phone, it is a dual SIM, physical SIM phone. So the first settings category I'm going to show you isn't actually SIMs, but it is
calls and SMS, Vodafone, preferred, gift of. Double tap to activate.
So this is the calls and SMS category in your network and internet settings, and you'll see it slightly mangled the speech, but I have two. I have Vodafone and giffgaff. And I suppose we could start by thinking about why you might want two SIM cards in the same phone. Why might you want to take advantage of your phone's dual SIM capabilities? Well, I think there are two main reasons. The first
DJ Edward started a closed
and most
room from bits and
obvious one
pieces.
is
Speak with them.
probably if you have a personal SIM and a business SIM. So you've got a personal line and a business line, and you want to have them on the same handset. This will enable you to do it, a dual SIM phone, very easily. The second is probably if you travel a lot. You might have two locations and maybe network coverage on one network isn't great in one of them. So you have two SIMs in your phone. Perhaps a more obvious use case is if you're travelling internationally and you might either want to put a local SIM in that second SIM slot, or maybe you have one of those international global SIMs which offer you cheap calls and data rates around the world. So we're in calls and SMS. I'm going to double tap on this.
Settings. Calls and SMS. Out of list. Navigate up. Button. Calls. Vodafone. Preferred. Gift of. And list.
So let's go in here and see what we have.
Calls. Ticked. Vodafone. And list.
So Vodafone is my preferred network. You can hear that. I also have
Gift of. Double tap to toggle.
giffgaff is my secondary network. But in calls at least I have
ask every time. Double tap to toggle.
So you could literally have it ask every single time. And if you go into your contacts, I believe you can set it so that you can have contacts associated with different SIMs. So different contacts will be called on different SIMs. But you can, if you like, for the avoidance of doubt, have ask every time. I'm going to back out.
Navigation bar. Back. Settings. Calls. Vodafone. Preferred. Gift of. And list. SMS. Vodafone. Preferred. Gift of. Double tap to activate.
And this option is which is going to text you. It's the same, except that there's no ask every time option. So I won't go into here. There's not much. But yeah, you don't have an ask every time option for SMS text messages.
Navigate up. Button. Out of. Settings. Calls and SMS. Vodafone. Preferred. Gift of. And list. SIMs. Vodafone. Gift of. Double tap to activate.
So SIMs was the main purpose of this demo.
SIMs. Vodafone. Gift of. Double tap to act. Settings. SIMs. Out of list. Navigate up. SIM. Heading. And list. Vodafone. Active / default for mobile data. Calls. SMS. Double tap to activate.
So Vodafone, as you can hear, is active and it's my default SIM.
Gift of. Active. Double tap to activate.
And the giffgaff SIM is not default for anything, but it does work. And that's it. And that's important because what I'm going to show you now is quite cool. I'm going to go into the Vodafone SIM just because it's active.
Vodafone SIM heading. Vodafone mobile network. Vodafone out of list.
And we'll explore what's in here and I'll tell you why it's cool in a minute.
Navigate up button. SIM name and color. SIM on switch and list. 19.85 GB used. 0B 19.85 GB. 4 days left.
So it shows us what the consumption of data is on that SIM. Quite handy if you're capped. I don't think the 4 days does actually relate to my monthly billing cycle. I think my phone's decided when that should be. No doubt I could go in there and have a look or change it somewhere else.
Data preference, Vodafone. Double tap to activate.
That is my data preference. I don't want to change it. I don't want giffgaff to be my default data SIM.
Calls preference, Vodafone, preferred, giffgaff. Double tap to activate. SMS preference, Vodafone, preferred, giffgaff. Double tap to activate.
So those settings categories outside of this are a bit redundant, really. You could change them from within here.
Mobile data, access data using mobile network, on, switch. Double tap to activate.
And this is the first reason why this is quite cool. So mobile data, you'll hear, is on. If I turn it off here, it will only be turned off for this SIM card. If I were to turn it off and go into giffgaff, mobile data would still be on in giffgaff. And obviously, if you have a SIM with a low data limit and you don't want to risk using it, you could disable data on one SIM card and still have it enabled on the other. And this is particularly important for the next setting.
Roaming. Connect the data services when roaming. Off. Switch. Double tap to activate.
Roaming is when you're using your SIM card abroad. That can get very expensive. So it's particularly useful, as I say, if you have a dual SIM use case when you are travelling. Perhaps you definitely don't want any risk at all of data being used on your other SIM. You can turn it off. Data roaming is much more complicated than it used to be, albeit the consumer is still better off probably than they were 15 years ago when data roaming wasn't complicated, but it was very, very expensive. And there was no way around that, and lots of people got huge phone bills running into the thousands. It's not that bad now because there are various caps and usage limits and all the rest of it, but whether or not you're going to get charged for data roaming doesn't just depend on where you're going and your network operator. It might even depend on what tariff you are on with that mobile network operator. Certainly in the UK it does. So EE and Vodafone, on their more expensive tariffs, have more roaming destinations where you can use your allowances for free than they do on their cheaper tariffs. So just watch that. And a bit like with Hotspot last week, we were talking about even where you can roam, don't assume you get all your allowances. So I have unlimited data. No roaming package anywhere, I don't think, will let me use unlimited data. I will be capped out at something like, well, last time I looked, back when I was travelling 3 years ago, it was 12 gig. So don't assume that you have unlimited data, that you will get absolutely unlimited data, even where you can roam for free. Do check the small print. Might be more than 12 gig now, I don't know. But certainly don't assume you can roam unlimitedly. So this is where you can control your data roaming settings, and as I say, you can do it on a SIM by SIM basis, which I think is good.
App data usage 19.85 GB used January 9th, February 8th. Double tap to activate.
There we are. We can see what our apps are doing. That's where our 4 days comes from. As I say, I don't quite know where it got those dates. I didn't set it. I don't think it knows when my billing cycle is, but who knows? I could be wrong. Perhaps it is aligned to the billing cycle. I should go in and check. But if you do have a monthly data allowance, then here is where you can keep track of it.
Data warning and limit. Double settings. Data warning and limit. Out of list. Navigate up. Button. Mobile data usage cycle and list. Set data warning. Off. Switch. Data warning. Disabled. Set data limit. Off. Switch. Data limit. Disabled. Data warning and data limit are measured by your device. This may be different from operator data.
So I can configure this in here if I do want warnings and limits.
Data warning and limit. Navigate up. Mobile network. Data warning and limit and list. Preferred network type 5G/4G/3G/2G. Double tap to activate.
So it's worth having a quick look in here, and I'll explain why you might want to change this.
Preferred network type. Ticked 5G/4G/3G/2G and list. Double tap to toggle.
That's what I want. It'll essentially connect me to the fastest network it can find.
4G/3G/2G. Double tap to toggle. 3G/2G. Double tap to toggle. 2G only. Double tap to toggle.
And there are various reasons I might want to do that, I suppose. Most obviously battery. 5G will use more battery than 4G or LTE. You might want to do it for that reason. You may have some sort of cap on 5G data consumption. That could be a speed cap, it could be a usage cap, it could be a combination of the two. And what you might find actually is that if your 5G speed is capped, as some UK networks did on the launch of 5G on some of their tariffs, Vodafone, I think, still does have a tariff where 5G speeds are capped, then in certain circumstances 4G might actually be quicker. So you might be better off turning your 5G off in situations where your 5G speeds become capped after a certain amount of data consumption. So something to bear in mind.
Network heading. Automatically select network on switch. Double tap to activate.
I think you're almost certainly going to want to leave this checked unless you are in a data roaming situation where it's useful to be able to manually scan. But even nowadays, when you're roaming, normally you're better off leaving this automatic.
Choose network. Vodafone UK disabled.
Well, the previous one was on, so I can't choose a network. It's Vodafone, and that's what the SIM is.
Access point names. Double tap to activate.
And we're not going to go into access point names. So that is it. But as I say, the nice thing about this in a dual SIM environment is that you can change those settings on a per SIM basis. So that is a tour of your SIM settings. One thing I mentioned but didn't tell you how to do, which wasn't that helpful of me, is kind of ancillary to these SIM settings. And that is that if you have a dual SIM scenario, you can set your phone to decide which SIM a contact is called or texted from. That's not in the SIM settings themselves, and I probably should have covered it. And you also can't do it from the contacts tab in the phone. You might think because the steps appear to be able to be performed from the phone app as well as the contacts app, it might work. It won't. You need to fire up the contacts app. It certainly works in the Google Contacts app. Maybe it works in other contacts apps on your phone. You pull up the contact, you open that contact, and there'll be a more options button. And in there is an assign SIM to contact. So if you do want a scenario where you want different contacts to be called off different SIMs, you might in the scenario I mentioned in my demo, where you have a business line and a personal line. That might be something you want to do. You would go in your contacts app, go in your contact, go in more options, and there will be a assign SIM to contact option. As I say, if you try and do it in the phone app, there you can go into the contact app and you go into a contact and there is a more options button, but that option won't be there.